The mystery of the light hunt. Are you ready for a new bedtime story? But first, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us know that you enjoy listening to these stories. Now, get comfortable, relax, and let's begin our story. The Village of Whispered Dreams. In the gentle rolling hills of England, during the reign of good King Henry II, there lived a young boy named Aelred. The year was 1173, and the world moved slowly then, like honey dripping from a wooden spoon on a warm summer morning. Aelred's village nestled in a valley, where the river Trent curved lazily through meadows dotted with sheep. The cottages stood like sleeping animals, their thatched roofs golden as wheat in the autumn sun, their walls made of wattle and daub that had weathered many seasons. Smoke drifted peacefully from every chimney, carrying the sweet scent of burning oak and ash, while children played quietly in the dusty lanes between the houses, the sound of their laughter mixed with the gentle bleating of sheep and the distant chiming of the abbey bells that marked the hours of prayer. Aelred lived with his grandmother, Dame Edith, in a cottage at the edge of the village, where the cultivated fields gave way to wild marshland. Their home was small but warm, with a hearth that glowed like a friendly face, and walls hung with bundles of dried herbs that filled the air with the scent of lavender and rosemary. Every morning, El would wake to the sound of his grandmother's spinning wheel, its gentle rhythm, like a lullaby that never ended. She would sit by the window, her fingers working the wool with practiced ease, while she hummed old songs that her grandmother had taught her long ago. Dame Edith had silver hair that caught the morning light, and eyes that twinkled like stars reflected in a still pond. Her voice was soft as summer rain when she spoke, and her hands were always warm when she tucked Aelred into his bed of straw and wool each night. The days passed peacefully in their little cottage. Aelred would help tend their small flock of sheep, leading them to graze in the meadows where wildflowers swayed in the gentle breeze. The sheep knew his voice and followed him like white clouds drifting across green fields. In the evenings, when the work was done, Dame Edith would tell him stories by the flickering firelight. Her voice would grow soft and mysterious as she spoke of the old days when her grandfather walked these same paths. Long ago, child, she would whisper, before the great abbey was built, before the Norman lords came to these lands, there were lights that danced over the marshes. Softly they drifted through the mist, like fallen stars seeking their way home. El would listen with wide eyes, his head resting on a pillow stuffed with sweet-smelling lavender. The flames in the hearth cast gentle shadows on the walls, while outside the wind sang softly through the thatch. What were they, grandmother? He would ask in a sleepy voice. These dancing lights. Dame Edith would smile and stroke his hair. Some say they were the souls of the blessed, guiding travelers safely home. Others believe they were messengers from St. Cuthbert himself, watching over the marsh folk. Quietly the lights would appear, she continued, when the mist rose from the water and the moon was but a silver crescent in the sky. They moved like gentle spirits, never frightening, always peaceful, bringing comfort to those who saw them. Aelred's eyes would grow heavy as her voice grew softer. The spinning wheel in the corner seemed to hum along with her words, creating a melody that wrapped around him like a warm blanket. "Sleep now, little one," Dame Edith would whisper, "and perhaps, in your dreams, you too will see the lights dancing over the marshes." As the seasons turned like pages in an ancient book, Aelred grew from a small boy into a youth of 12 summers. His curiosity about the mysterious lights grew stronger with each passing day, like a seed that had taken root in fertile soil. The sheep knew his gentle ways and followed him willingly as he led them further from the village, closer to the edges of the marshland where the grass grew thick and sweet. Sometimes, in the early morning mist, he thought he glimpsed something moving in the distance, something that glowed softly and then vanished like a whisper. "Grandmother," he said one evening as they sat by their fire, sharing a simple meal of bread and cheese, "have you ever seen the lights yourself?" Dame Edith set down her wooden bowl and gazed into the flames for a long moment. Her eyes seemed to hold memories of many years, like pools that reflected both joy and wonder. "Once, dear child," she said softly, "when I was younger than you are now, I was walking home from the abbey after evening prayers. The mist had risen from the marsh, thick as sheep's wool, and I had lost my way in the darkness." She paused, letting the silence stretch like a cat in the sunshine. The fire crackled gently, sending warm light dancing across her weathered face. "Then I saw it," she continued, "a soft glow moving through the mist, no larger than a candle flame, but steady and calm. It seemed to beckon me, not with urgency, but with the gentle patience of a mother calling her child home. I followed that light," Dame Edith whispered, "and it led me safely to the village path. When I turned to look back, to offer my thanks, it had vanished as quietly as it had come, like a blessing that appears just when it's needed most." Aelred felt his heart flutter with wonder. The story wrapped around him like the warm woolen cloak his grandmother had woven for him. He could almost see the light dancing in his mind, gentle and mysterious. Days passed like petals falling from apple trees, and Aelred found himself drawn more and more to the edges of the marshland. He would stand among the sheep, watching the mist rise in the early morning, hoping to glimpse the mysterious lights his grandmother had described. The other children in the village spoke of the lights too, but their voices held fear rather than wonder. They whispered of will-o'-the-wisps that led travelers astray, of evil spirits that haunted the marshes after dark. But Aelred remembered the gentleness in his grandmother's voice, the peace in her eyes when she spoke of the light that had guided her home. He could not believe that anything so beautiful could mean harm. One morning, as the sun rose like a golden coin above the horizon, Aelred was leading the sheep to pasture when he saw a figure walking slowly along the road that led to their village. The man wore the simple brown robes of a monk and carried a staff that caught the morning light. The sheep gathered around Aelred, sensing his stillness while he watched the approaching figure. There was something peaceful about the way the monk walked, as if he carried tranquility with him like a blessing. As the monk drew nearer, Aelred could see that he was neither young nor old, but somewhere in between, like the moment between day and night, when the world holds its breath. His face was kind, with eyes that seemed to have seen many wonders, and his smile was warm as summer sunshine. "Good morning, young shepherd," the monk said, his voice gentle as wind through wheat. "I am Brother Marcus, traveling from the abbey at Revo to bring word to your village priest." "Good morning, brother," Aelred replied, remembering his grandmother's teachings about courtesy to holy men. "I am Aelred, and these are my grandmother's sheep." Brother Marcus nodded, his eyes twinkling with kindness. "A fine flock, and well cared for, I can see. Tell me, young Aelred, what do you know of the lights that dance over these marshes?" Aelred's heart quickened, like a bird taking flight. Here was someone who might understand, someone who spoke of the lights without fear or superstition. "My grandmother has seen them," Aelred said softly. "She says they guide lost travelers home. Some in the village fear them, but she speaks of them with wonder." Brother Marcus leaned on his staff and gazed out over the marshland where morning mist still clung to the reeds and rushes. "Your grandmother is wise," he said. "Fear often clouds the eyes, preventing us from seeing the true nature of God's creation." "Do you know what they are?" Aelred asked, his voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might frighten away the mystery. The monk smiled. "Perhaps, but knowledge is like a garden. It grows best when tended with patience and care. Would you like to learn, young Aelred? Would you like to discover the truth of these dancing lights?" Aelred felt as if his heart might overflow with joy, like a cup filled to the brim with clear spring water. "Oh, yes, Brother Marcus, more than anything." "Then we shall explore together," the monk said, but slowly, carefully, with respect for the mysteries of creation. "Tonight, when the moon rises, meet me at the edge of the marsh, and we shall begin to uncover the secrets of the lights." The rest of that day passed like honey flowing from a comb, slow and golden and sweet. Aelred tended his sheep with gentle care, but his mind wandered to the evening ahead, to the promise of discovery that awaited him. Dame Edith noticed his distraction as they shared their evening meal. "You seem far away tonight, child," she said with a knowing smile. "Has something captured your imagination?" Aelred told her of his meeting with Brother Marcus, and the monks offered to explore the mystery of the lights together. Dame Edith listened with the patience of still water, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "Brother Marcus is known to me," she said finally. "He stayed here once before, years ago, when you were but a small child. He is a man of learning, but also of faith. He sees God's hand in all of creation, from the smallest wildflower to the grandest cathedral." She rose and moved to a wooden chest in the corner. From it, she drew a cloak of deep blue wool, soft as a cloud at twilight. "Take this with you," she said. "The marsh air grows cold at night, and I would have you warm and safe." As darkness fell over the village like a gentle blanket, Aelred wrapped himself in his grandmother's cloak and made his way to the edge of the marshland. The moon hung in the sky like a silver lantern, casting soft light on the path before him. Brother Marcus was waiting, a darker shadow against the silver-touched reeds. He carried a small oil lamp that glowed warmly in the night. "Are you ready, young seeker?" he asked softly. "Yes, brother," Aelred whispered, feeling as if he stood on the threshold of a great adventure. Together, they stepped into the marshland, where the mystery of the dancing lights awaited. Softly, the marshland welcomed them, like an ancient hall opening its doors to honored guests. The reeds whispered secrets to the night wind, while water lapped gently against hidden banks with the rhythm of a sleeping heart. Brother Marcus moved with the careful steps of one who had walked many paths, his lamp casting a circle of warm light that seemed to part the darkness rather than fight it. Aelred followed close behind, his grandmother's cloak wrapped snugly around his shoulders, feeling both excited and peaceful. Quietly now, Brother Marcus murmured, "We are guests in this watery realm. We must move with respect, listening more than speaking, observing more than disturbing." The marsh stretched around them like a vast tapestry woven from moonlight and shadow, pools of dark. Water reflected the stars like scattered jewels, while tall grasses swayed in patterns that seemed to tell stories in a language older than words. They walked for a time in comfortable silence, their feet finding firm ground among the tussocks of grass. The air smelled of growing things, of water and earth, and the sweet breath of sleeping flowers. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called softly, its voice like a blessing carried on the wind. "There," Brother Marcus whispered suddenly, pointing with his staff toward a distant part of the marsh. "Do you see?" Aelred peered into the silver darkness, and there, dancing among the reeds like a star that had come to earth, was a soft blue-white light. It moved with gentle grace, neither hurried nor hesitant, but with the calm purpose of something that belonged exactly where it was. "Oh," Aelred breathed, his voice full of wonder. "It's beautiful." The light drifted slowly across the water, leaving a trail of soft luminescence that faded like the memory of a smile. It pulsed gently, as if breathing, and seemed to respond to the rhythm of the wind through the reeds. "Come," Brother Marcus said softly. "Let's move closer," but slowly, like shadows learning to dance. With moonlight, they made their way carefully through the marsh grass, stepping from one firm tussock to another. The light seemed aware of their presence, but unafraid, continuing its gentle dance as they approached. As they drew nearer, Aelred could see that the light seemed to rise from the surface of the water itself, not floating above it like a firefly, but emerging from it like a flower made of luminescence. It glowed with a steady, peaceful radiance that made him think of his grandmother's eyes when she told her gentlest stories. "What is it?" Aelred whispered, his voice full of awe. Brother Marcus set his lamp carefully on a stable mound of earth. and settled beside it, patting the ground to invite Aelred to sit. That, young friend, is one of God's most beautiful mysteries. Some call them marsh lights. Others know them as will-o'-the-wisps. But I prefer to think of them as Earth's own. Candles, lit by the breath of creation itself. Aelred sat beside the monk, pulling his cloak closer around him. The light continued its gentle dance, and now he could see others. Tiny pinpricks of luminescence scattered across the marshland like fallen stars. Long ago, Brother Marcus continued, his voice soft as a prayer. When I was studying in the great libraries of Rome, I read the works of ancient scholars who tried to understand these lights. Some believed they were the souls of the departed. Others thought them to be spirits of the elements. What do you believe? Aelred asked, watching as another light appeared, this one dancing in slow circles above a patch of open water. Brother Marcus smiled, his eyes reflecting the distant glow. I believe, dear Aelred, that God works through all of creation, through things seen and unseen, through mysteries that inspire wonder, and through natural processes that reveal his infinite wisdom. He pointed toward the lights with gentle reverence. These beautiful dancers are born from the marsh itself, from the plants that grow and die in these waters, from the leaves that fall and sink, from all the life that has blessed this place through countless seasons. As these blessed remnants of life rest beneath the water, the monk continued, they slowly transform, giving back their essence to the earth. And sometimes, when conditions are just right, when the air is still and the night is calm, that essence rises, visible as light, beautiful as any cathedral window. Aelred felt understanding dawn in his heart, like sunrise over still water. So the lights, they're part of the marsh itself, part of all the life that has been here. Indeed, Brother Marcus nodded. They are creation celebrating itself, life honoring life. The very breath of the earth made visible. Is that not as wondrous as any miracle? As if summoned by their conversation, more lights began to appear, gentle points of luminescence, rising from the dark water like prayers made manifest. They danced together in patterns that seemed both random and purposeful, creating a constellation reflected on earth. Softly the lights drifted. Aelred murmured, remembering his grandmother's words, like fallen stars, seeking their way home. Your grandmother spoke truly, Brother Marcus said. They're indeed like stars, but stars that have chosen to dwell among us, to remind us that wonder exists in the quiet places, in the hidden corners of creation where few think to look. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lights dance their ancient ballet. The night air grew cooler, but Aelred felt warmed by the beauty before him, by the knowledge that mysteries could be understood without losing their magic. Brother Marcus, he said finally, why do some people fear these lights? Why do they speak of them as evil spirits? The monk considered for a moment, his gaze fixed on a particularly bright light that pulsed gently near the far shore. Fear, young Aelred, often comes from not understanding. When we cannot explain something, we sometimes imagine the worst, rather than seeking the truth with patience and wonder. The lights appear at night, he continued, when darkness makes all things seem uncertain. They move in ways that seem magical, and magic, to fearful hearts, can seem dangerous. But you and I, we have seen them now, with our own eyes. Have they brought us harm? Have they led us astray? No, Aelred whispered. They're peaceful, beautiful, like a blessing. Exactly. Brother Marcus smiled. And that, dear friend, is what your grandmother understood. She saw them not with fear, but with the eyes of wonder. She knew that something so gentle, so beautiful, could only be a gift. As the night deepened, the lights seemed to grow brighter, their dance becoming more elaborate. More and more appeared until the marsh sparkled like a field of earthbound stars. The sight took Aelred's breath away, filling his heart with a joy so pure it felt like prayer. There's something else, Brother Marcus said softly, something practical that these lights have always done for the people of these marshes. He pointed to a light that danced near what looked like a solid path through the wetland. See how that one marks safe passage. The marsh folk have always known where the lights appear. The ground beneath is usually firm. The gases that create the lights, they rise where the water is not too deep, where travelers can walk safely. So they do guide people home. Aelred said with wonder, just as grandmother said. Indeed they do. Brother Marcus nodded. Not through any supernatural power, but through the simple, beautiful logic of creation. They appear where it's safest to walk. They glow brightest on calm, nights when travel is easiest. They are, in their own gentle way, the marsh's gift to those who seek safe passage. Quietly the marshes sang. Aelred whispered, listening to the soft sounds of water and wind and rustling reeds, their song made of light. Brother Marcus looked at the boy with approval. You understand, young seeker. You have eyes that see truly, and a heart that recognizes beauty in all its forms. As the moon traced its path across the star-filled sky, they watched the lights continue their gentle dance. Some grew brighter, others faded. New ones appeared while others drifted away like wishes, carried on the wind. It was like watching the heartbeat of the marsh itself, slow and steady and infinitely peaceful. We should return, Brother Marcus said finally, though his voice held reluctance. The night grows late, and your grandmother will be concerned. They gathered their belongings, the monk lifting his lamp, while Aelred pulled his cloak tight. As they turned to leave, Aelred looked back once more at the dancing lights, committing their beauty to memory like a treasure to be kept safe in his heart. The walk back to the village passed in comfortable silence, both of them carrying the wonder of what they had witnessed. The lights continued to glow behind them, a gentle farewell that seemed to promise future meetings. At the edge of the marshland, where cultivated fields began, Brother Marcus paused. Remember, Young Aelred, what we have learned tonight, the lights are not evil, nor are they supernatural. They are simply one of creation's many gifts. Beautiful, natural, and peaceful. Will you tell others? Aelred asked, will you help them understand? In time, the monk replied, but change comes slowly, like dawn breaking over distant hills. For now, carry this knowledge gently. Share it with those who are ready to listen, with those who approach. Wonder with open hearts. As they reached the village, Brother Marcus placed a gentle hand on Aelred's shoulder. You have been a worthy companion tonight, young seeker. The lights have found in you someone who sees their true nature, someone who can carry their story forward. Thank you, Brother Marcus, Aelred said, his heart full of gratitude. Tonight has been magical. Indeed it has, the monk smiled. Sleep well, young friend, and when you wake, remember that the world is full of wonders, waiting for eyes that know how to see. Aelred walked softly toward his grandmother's cottage, his heart still glowing like the lights he had left. Dancing in the marshland, the village slept peacefully around him. Cottages dark save for the occasional flicker of a dying hearth, and the night air carried the mingled sense of cooling earth and sleeping. Flowers. Dame Edith was waiting by the fire, her spinning wheel silent for once, her weathered hands folded in, her lap like wings at rest. She looked up as Aelred entered, her eyes bright with gentle curiosity. You've seen them, haven't you? She said softly. Not quite a question, but a knowing statement that carried the warmth of understanding. Aelred settled beside her on the wooden bench, his grandmother's cloak still wrapped around his shoulders. Yes, grandmother, they were beautiful beyond words, like stars that chose to dance on earth. He told her everything, his voice soft with wonder, describing the lights that rose like luminous flowers from the dark water. Brother Marcus's gentle explanations, the way the marsh seemed to sing with quiet magic. Dame Edith listened with the patience of deep water, her eyes reflecting his joy. So now you know, she said when he finished. The lights are part of the marsh's own life, part of the great tapestry of creation. Does this knowledge make them less wonderful to you? Aelred considered her question, gazing into the dying embers of their fire. No, grandmother. If anything, they seem more wonderful. To think that such beauty comes from the marsh itself, from all the life that has blessed that place. It makes them feel sacred. Dame Edith smiled, reaching out to stroke his hair with gentle fingers. You have learned a great truth. Tonight, child, that understanding something doesn't steal its magic. True wonder grows deeper when we see how beautifully God works through his creation. She rose and moved her chest, drawing out a small leather pouch tied with cord. This belonged to your grandfather, she said. He was a man who saw wonder in all things. Like you, he would walk the marshes sometimes, when the moon was bright, just to watch the lights dance. Inside the pouch were several small objects. A smooth stone from the river, a piece of wood shaped by water into something beautiful. A pressed flower from a marshland. Simple treasures that spoke of a man who collected moments of beauty like others collected coins. He used to say, Dame Edith continued, that the lights were Earth's way of celebrating every bloom that ever brightened the marsh, every reed that swayed in summer breezes, every creature that found life and joy in those waters. All of it lives on in those gentle flames. Aelred touched the treasures with reverent fingers, feeling connected to the grandfather he had never known, but whose love of wonder lived on in his grandmother's stories, in her gentle wisdom, in her understanding of beauty. Sleep now, dear one, Dame Edith whispered. Dream of dancing lights, of marshland songs, of all the quiet wonders that await discovery. As Aelred settled into his bed of straw and wool, his grandmother began to hum, a melody that seemed to echo the rhythm of the lights he had watched, gentle and steady, peaceful and eternal. The sound wrapped around him like a blessing, carrying him toward dreams filled with luminous dancers. Morning came softly to the village, painting the sky in shades of pearl and gold. Aelred woke to the familiar sound of his grandmother's spinning wheel, but today the rhythm seemed different, more musical, as if it too had learned to dance. He dressed quickly and went to tend the sheep, leading them out to the meadows where dew still sparkled on every blade of grass. The flock followed him willingly, sensing his peaceful mood, and grazed contentedly while he sat among them, remembering the wonders of the previous night. As the sun climbed higher, bringing warmth to the morning air, Aelred noticed a small group of children approaching across the field. Their faces were curious but uncertain, as if they carried questions they weren't sure how to ask. Aelred called young Tom, a boy from the village center. We heard you went to the marshes last night with the traveling monk. Did you see them? The lights. The other children gathered closer, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and fascination. Among them was little Sarah, barely 7 years old, who clutched her older brother's hand tightly. Were they frightening? She whispered. Did they try to lead you astray? Aelred looked at their worried faces, remembering Brother Marcus's words about how fear came from not understanding. He smiled gently, settling more comfortably among his sheep, inviting the children to sit with him in the soft grass. The lights, he said softly, are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. They dance like joy made, visible, gentle and peaceful, more like angels and demons. He told them what he had learned, his voice calm and reassuring, describing the lights as part of the marsh's own celebration, Earth's way of honoring all the life that had blessed those waters. The children listened with growing wonder, their fears slowly melting away like morning frost. So they're not evil, Tom said, his voice filled with relief and curiosity. Not evil at all, Aelred confirmed. They're beautiful and gentle, and they help travelers find safe paths through the marsh. They're like the marsh's own way of saying welcome. Little Sarah released her brother's hand, her eyes bright with newfound wonder. Could we see them? Do you think they would dance for us too? Perhaps. Aelred smiled. On a calm night, when the moon is bright and the mist rises from the water, but we would need to approach them with respect, quietly, the way we would visit a cathedral. Over the following days, word of Aelred's discovery spread gently through the village, like ripples spreading across still water. Brother Marcus, before continuing on his journey, spoke with the village priest, sharing his knowledge of the natural world and its wonders. Father Benedict, a kind man who saw God's hand in all creation, announced during Sunday service that the marsh lights were not to be feared, but appreciated as one of the many gifts of the Creator. His words carried weight in the community, helping to replace superstition with understanding. Some of the older villagers, those who had always feared the lights, were slow to change their minds, but others, especially the children, embraced this new knowledge with joy. They began to speak of the lights with wonder rather than terror, and some even asked Aelred to guide them to see the dancing flames. Dame Edith watched these changes with quiet satisfaction. "You have done a good thing," she told her grandson one evening as they shared their simple supper. "You have replaced fear with understanding, darkness with light." Brother Marcus did most of the teaching. Aelred replied humbly, "I was only willing to learn." Willingness to learn, his grandmother said, is perhaps the greatest gift of all. It opens doors to wonder, and wonder, dear child, is the beginning of wisdom. As autumn deepened, and the marshes grew more active with their displays of light, Aelred became something of a guide for those brave enough to venture into the wetlands. He would lead small groups of villagers, always on clear nights when the moon was bright, showing them the gentle wonders that dance among the reeds. Each expedition was conducted with reverence, like a pilgrimage to a sacred place. Aelred taught his followers to move quietly, to disturb nothing, to observe with respect and gratitude. And always, the lights rewarded their patience with displays of breathtaking beauty. Softly the lights drifted, became a phrase known throughout the village, spoken whenever someone wanted to evoke the peace and wonder of a marsh. Quietly the marshes sang was another used to describe any moment of perfect tranquility. The seasons turned, as they always had, but something had changed in the village. A seed of wonder had been planted, nurtured by understanding, watered by courage, and it grew into something beautiful, a community that looked at the world with less fear and more appreciation. Winter came gently to the marshland, wrapping the reeds in silver frost and laying a blanket of pristine snow over the tussocks and pathways. The lights still danced, perhaps even more beautifully against the white landscape, their glow reflected and multiplied by the crystalline surfaces around them. Aelred, now known throughout the village as a young man who understood the marsh lights, continued his gentle guardianship of both sheep and secrets. He had grown taller over the months, but remained as peaceful and thoughtful as ever, his eyes holding the calm wisdom of one who has touched mystery and found it good, On the coldest nights, when other young men gathered around the tavern fire to drink ale and tell boisterous stories, Aelred could often be found at the marsh's edge, wrapped in his grandmother's cloak, watching the lights dance against the winter darkness. Each visit brought new appreciation, new understanding of the quiet rhythms that govern this watery realm. Dame Edith, now in her 70th year, had begun to move more slowly, her fingers sometimes stiff, with cold even by the warmest fire. But her eyes remained bright, and her voice still carried the music of stories well told. She spent more time at her spinning wheel, creating thread that seemed to capture starlight in its fibers. "Tell me again about the lights," she would ask on the longest winter evenings. Even though she knew the story by heart, she loved to hear Aelred describe their beauty, loved the wonder that never left his voice, loved the way his face glowed like the marsh flames themselves when he spoke of dancing. Luminescence. Brother Marcus returned to the village that winter, his brown robes dusted with snow, his staff clicking rhythmically on the frozen ground. He brought news from the wider world, tales of King Henry's court, updates from distant monasteries, but he seemed most interested in hearing how the village had received the knowledge of the marsh lights. "You have done well, young friend," he told Aelred as they sat by Dame Edith's fire, sharing bread and hot broth. "Understanding has replaced fear. Wonder has conquered superstition. These are victories, as important as any won by knights in armor. The children love to hear about the lights now," Aelred replied. "Little Sarah draws pictures of them on her slate. Tom has composed songs about their dancing. Even some of the adults who once feared them now speak of them with respect." Brother Marcus nodded approvingly. "Knowledge shared with love," he said, "multiplies itself like seeds on fertile ground. You have planted something beautiful here, something that will grow long after we are gone." That evening, as snow fell softly outside, the three of them sat around the glowing hearth. Dame Edith spinning her silver thread, Brother Marcus reading from a book of prayers, Aelred gazing into the flames and thinking of their cousins dancing in the distant marsh. The cottage felt like a haven of peace, a place where understanding and wonder dwelt together in perfect harmony. "I have been thinking," Dame Edith said softly, her will slowing to a gentle rhythm, "about the story of the lights, about how it will be remembered." She looked at Aelred with eyes that held both love and a kind of gentle urgency. "Stories, dear one, are like the lights themselves. They need tenders, people who will keep them alive, who will share them with those who come after." Brother Marcus set down his book, understanding passing between him and the old woman like a shared prayer. "Your grandmother speaks wisely, young Aelred. Every generation needs its storytellers, its keepers of wonder. But I'm just a shepherd," Aelred protested gently. "I know so little compared to learned men like you, Brother Marcus." "Knowledge comes in many forms," the monk replied. "I have read about natural philosophy in great libraries. But you have walked with the lights. You have felt their peace. You have seen how understanding can transform fear into wonder, that is wisdom beyond books. Dame Edith reached into her work basket, drawing out a small bundle wrapped in soft cloth. I have been working on this through the winter months, she said, unfolding the fabric to reveal a tapestry of extraordinary beauty. Woven into the cloth were scenes from their marshland, reeds that seemed to sway even in the stillness, water that appeared to ripple in the firelight and scattered throughout, tiny threads that caught the light and glowed like captured stars. The marsh lights themselves, preserved in wool and wonder. It tells the story, Dame Edith whispered, of a boy who was curious, of a monk who was wise, of lights that danced, and fears that became joy. It will hang in our cottage, and someday, when I am gone, it will remind you and others of this beautiful mystery. Aelred touched the tapestry with reverent fingers, seeing his own story reflected in the gentle artistry. It's beautiful beyond words. Grandmother, like the lights themselves. And like the lights, she smiled, it will endure, carrying its message to those who have eyes to see. Spring returned to the marshland with a symphony of new life. Tender shoots of green pushed through the dark soil, while birds returned from distant lands with songs of celebration. The winter's ice melted away, revealing pools that sparkle like mirrors in the strengthening sun. Aelred led his grandmother's sheep to the spring pastures, watching them gambol like children released. From winter's confinement, the flock had grown over the months. New lambs born to continue the ancient cycle of life and renewal, their bleating mixed with the sounds of awakening marsh birds, creating a chorus that spoke of hope and continuance. As evening approached, and the familiar mist began to rise from the warming waters, Aelred made his way to his favorite watching spot, a small rise overlooking the heart of the marshland. The lights would appear soon, as they always did when conditions were perfect, and he wanted to greet them like old friends returning home. Sure enough, as darkness deepened, the first gentle glow appeared among the reeds, followed by another, then another, until the marsh sparkled with dozens of dancing flames. They seemed particularly lively tonight, as if celebrating their own return to full activity after winter's quieter months. Softly the lights drifted. Aelred whispered to himself, settling into the peaceful rhythm that had become second nature to him. Quietly the marshes sang. As he watched, he became aware of footsteps approaching through the grass behind him. Turning, he saw a small procession of villagers, led by young Tom and little Sarah, now taller and more confident than she had been the year before. They carried no torches, having learned that artificial light could interfere with the gentle luminescence they sought to witness. "We hope we might find you here," Tom said softly, his voice respectful of the sacred quiet that surrounded them. "We wanted to see if the lights had returned in full glory." "They have indeed." Aelred smiled, making room for the children to sit beside him. "Look, there, and there, and see how that one dances in spirals." The children settled around him, their eyes wide with wonder, watching the lights perform their eternal ballet. Sarah clasped her hands together in delight, while Tom tried to count the dancing flames, giving up when more appeared faster than he could keep track. "Why do you think they're so active tonight?" Sarah whispered, her voice full of awe. Aelred considered the question, watching as a particularly bright light rose from the water and danced in lazy circles. "Perhaps they're celebrating spring, celebrating the return of life to the marshes. Oh, winter, the plants and creatures rested. But now, everything awakens, and maybe the lights are the marsh's way of saying welcome back. Like a festival." Tom breathed. "A festival of light." "Exactly like that," Aelred agreed, feeling the rightness of the comparison. "A celebration that happens every spring, every time life returns to the water." They sat together in comfortable silence, the small group united by shared wonder, watching as the lights continued their joyous display. More villagers arrived, drawn by some instinct that told them this was a special night. They came quietly, respectfully, taking places on the small rise until nearly 24 people sat together under the stars. Among them was Father Benedict, who had walked from the village to witness this marvel of creation. His presence blessed the gathering, adding a sense of reverence that lifted the moment from mere observation to something approaching worship. "Behold," the priest said softly, his voice carrying just far enough for all to hear, "the wonders of the Lord made manifest in the humblest of places. Here, in marsh and mist, we see the hand of the Creator, painting beauty with light itself." The light seemed to respond to his words, growing brighter, dancing with renewed vigor, creating patterns that spoke of joy and celebration. Some of the watchers gasped softly, overcome by the beauty spread before them. Others wept quietly, tears of pure wonder streaming down their faces. Dame Edith, supported by 2 strong young men from the village, had made the journey to join this gathering. Her face glowed with satisfaction as she watched her grandson share the wonder he had discovered, watched fear and superstition melt away in the warm light of understanding. "You have done well, my dear one," she whispered to Aelred, her voice barely audible above the gentle sounds of marsh and night. "You have given them a gift that will last their lifetimes." As the night deepened and the display began to fade, the villagers made their way slowly home, their hearts full of wonder, their minds carrying images of beauty that would comfort them in dark hours. They walked in small groups, voices soft with awe, sharing what they had witnessed. Aelred helped his grandmother back to their cottage, her steps slow but sure, her face serene with contentment. The tapestry she had woven hung on their wall, its golden threads catching the firelight, a permanent reminder of beauty discovered and shared. "The lights will dance long after we are gone," Dame Edith said as Aelred helped her settle by the fire. "But tonight, we have ensured that people will remember them with joy, not fear. That is a gift worth giving." Summer brought longer days and warmer nights, but also a gradual change in the rhythms of their quiet. household, Dame Edith grew more frail, spending longer hours by her spinning wheel, her fingers moving slowly but surely, creating thread that seemed spun from moonlight itself. Aelred cared for her with gentle devotion, bringing her meals, helping her to bed, sitting with her in the evenings while she told stories of the old days. Her voice grew softer, but never lost its music, and her eyes remained bright with the wisdom of years and the joy of love shared. "Promise me," she said one evening as the marsh mist rose outside their window, "that you will continue to guide people to the lights, that you will help them see beauty instead of danger, wonder instead of fear." "I promise, grandmother," Aelred said, taking her frail hands in his strong ones. "As long as I live, the story of the lights will be told with love, told with truth, told with wonder." She smiled, her face peaceful as still water. "Then I am content. The lights have found their guardian, and the mystery has found its keeper." That autumn, as the leaves turned gold and red, as the harvest brought abundance to the village, Dame Edith passed quietly in her sleep, her spinning wheel finally still, her hands folded like wings at rest. She left behind a cottage full of love, a grandson full of wisdom, and a tapestry that would carry the story of the marsh lights through generations yet to come. The legacy of dancing light. The village mourned Dame Edith's passing with a gentle sorrow reserved for those who have lived well and loved deeply. Father Benedict said the funeral mass with words that spoke of a life that had enriched all it touched, of wisdom shared, of stories preserved, of a grandson raised with love and understanding. Aelred, now a young man of 18, inherited not only his grandmother's cottage, but her role as keeper of the village's stories. The tapestry hung in the place of honor above the hearth, its golden threads catching every flicker of firelight, a constant reminder of the beauty that had shaped his childhood. Brother Marcus, gray now at the temples but still strong in spirit, returned for the funeral. He stayed several days, helping Aelred understand the weight of the responsibility he had inherited, the importance of carrying forward the light of knowledge and wonder. "Your grandmother was more than a storyteller," the monk said as they walked together through the marshland, watching the autumn mist rise like prayers from the warming water. "She was a keeper of wisdom, a guardian of truth. She saw the world with eyes unclouded by fear or prejudice, and she taught others to see the same way. I want to be worthy of that trust." Aelred replied, his voice soft with grief and determination. "But sometimes I wonder if I'm wise enough, strong enough to carry on what you began." "Wisdom," Brother Marcus said gently, "is not something we possess, but something we seek each day, with each choice, with each moment of wonder we choose to embrace. You already have everything you need. You have curiosity, compassion, and most importantly, you have love for the mystery itself." As they spoke, the first lights of evening began to appear among the reeds, gentle glows that pulsed with the rhythm of the marsh's own heartbeat. They rose from the dark water, like stars being born, each one perfect in its simplicity, beautiful in its transience. "Look," Brother Marcus whispered, pointing to a cluster of lights that danced in perfect synchrony. "Do you see how they move together, not by plan or design, but by the simple laws that govern all of creation? They teach us something important about how individual beauty contributes to collective wonder." Aelred watched the dancing flames, seeing in them not just natural phenomenon, but a lesson in community, in how separate lives could combine to create something greater than the sum of their parts. "Like the village," he said softly, "each person adding their own light to the whole." "Exactly," the monk smiled. "And your role, young guardian, is to help each person discover their own inner light, their own capacity for wonder, their own ability to add beauty to the world." That winter, Aelred began what would become a lifelong practice. On certain nights, when the moon was bright and the marsh was active, he would guide small groups to witness the lights. Each expedition was planned with care, conducted with reverence, designed not just to show people the dancing flames, but to help them understand their place in the great tapestry of creation. He told the story each time of his childhood curiosity, of his grandmother's gentle wisdom, of Brother Marcus's patient teaching, of how fear had been transformed into wonder through understanding and respect. The listeners, young and old alike, would sit in rapt attention, watching the lights dance as the tale unfolded. Softly the lights drifted to the story of our village, became Aelred's opening words, a phrase that immediately transported his listeners into a state of peaceful attention. Quietly the marshes sang of mysteries waiting to be discovered. Children who had been afraid of the marsh became its eager students. Adults who had dismissed the lights as mere superstition found themselves moved to tears by their beauty. Travelers passing through the village often stayed extra days, drawn by stories of the dancing flames and the young man who understood their secrets. As spring returned, bringing new life to the marshland, Aelred made a decision that would shape the rest of his days. He would expand his role from guardian of the lights to teacher of wonder itself. He would help people understand not just the marsh phenomenon, but the larger truth it represented. That the world was full of mysteries waiting to be explored with patience and love. He began to study, reading every book Brother Marcus could provide, learning about the natural world, the movements of stars, the cycles of seasons, the intricate relationships that bound all living things together. But always, his greatest classroom remained the marsh itself. His greatest teachers, the lights that danced there. Young people from nearby villages began to seek him out, drawn by stories of the peaceful shepherd who could explain wonders without destroying their magic. He welcomed them all, sharing not just knowledge but a way of seeing, a way of approaching mystery with reverence rather than fear. Sarah, now a young woman of 16, became his most devoted student. She had grown into someone of quiet beauty and deep thoughtfulness, her childhood fascination with the lights having matured into genuine understanding. Often she would help guide groups to the marsh, her gentle voice adding harmony to Aelred's storytelling. Tell them about the first time you saw the lights, she would urge, knowing that his personal story carried more power than any abstract explanation. Tell them how you felt when you realized they were part of the marsh's own life. And Aelred would tell it again, never tiring of the tale, because each telling brought new understanding, both to his listeners and to himself. The story grew richer with each repetition, accumulating layers of meaning like sediment in the marsh bottom, becoming something more than history, becoming legend, becoming truth preserved in the amber of loving repetition. Tom, now a skilled carpenter, created a small shrine at the edge of the marshland, not to worship the lights themselves, but to mark the place where wonder had triumphed over fear, where understanding had replaced superstition, where a community had learned to see beauty in what they had once considered frightening. The shrine was simple, made of local stone and weathered wood, with space for travelers to rest, to contemplate the mystery of the lights, to prepare their hearts for wonder. Carved into the stone were words that captured the essence of what Dame Edith had taught, what Aelred had learned, what the village had embraced. Here dance the lights of Earth's celebration. Here mystery reveals itself to patient hearts. Here wonder waits for those who seek with love. Father Benedict blessed the shrine on the feast of St. Cuthbert, the patron St. Dame Edith had often invoked when speaking of the lights. The entire village gathered for the ceremony, along with visitors from settlements miles away, all united by shared appreciation for the dancing flames and the wisdom they represented. Years flowed by like the gentle current of the River Trent, each season bringing its own gifts, its own lessons, its own opportunities for wonder. Aelred grew from youth to man, his hair darkening, his shoulders broadening, but his eyes retaining the gentle curiosity that had first drawn him to the marsh. Lights. He married Sarah in the spring of his 25th year. Their wedding celebrated not in the village church, but at the shrine beside the marshland, surrounded by friends and family and the gentle glow of the lights that had brought them together. Father Benedict performed the ceremony as mist rose from the water and the first evening stars appeared in the darkening sky. May your love be like the lights that dance here, the priest intoned, constant yet ever-changing, gentle yet enduring, a beacon for others who seek their way through darkness. Their first child, a daughter they named Edith in honor of the grandmother who had started it all, was born as autumn touched the marshes with gold. She came into the world on a night when the lights danced with particular beauty, as if welcoming the newest member of their eternal audience. As little Edith grew, she showed the same fascination with the lights that had captivated her father. Often she would toddle to the cottage window at dusk, pressing her small face against the glass, pointing toward the marsh with delight when the first glows appeared among the reeds. "Lights," she would whisper, her voice filled with the pure wonder that belongs only to children. "Pretty lights." Aelred would lift her in his strong arms, carrying her to their favorite watching spot, where she would sit, quietly in his lap, her eyes wide with amazement as the familiar magic unfolded before them. These moments, father and daughter sharing silence and wonder, became precious beyond measure. Sarah would often join them, bringing a warm cloak and cups of herb tea, creating a family ritual around the nightly display. Little Edith would eventually fall asleep in her mother's arms, lulled by the gentle rhythm of the dancing flames and the soft voices of her parents discussing the day's events. Softly, the lights drifted into another generation. Aelred would murmur, brushing a kiss against his daughter's sleeping forehead. Quietly, the marshes sang their eternal lullaby. Brother Marcus, now an old man, but still traveling, still teaching, still marveling at the wonders of creation, visited regularly. Becoming like a grandfather to little Edith, he would sit by their fire on winter evenings, telling stories of distant lands, of other mysteries he had encountered, of the way wonder manifested itself in countless forms across God's creation. The lights you guard here, he told Aelred one snowy evening, are but one note in creation's great symphony. In the mountains, I have seen aurora that paint the sky with colors beyond naming. In the desert, flowers that bloom only once in decades, covering the sand with impossible beauty. Each mystery, each wonder, teaches the same lesson, that the world is far more magical than we dare to imagine. Little Edith, now old enough to understand stories, would listen with the same rapt attention her father had shown years before. Her questions were simple but profound, the kind that could only be asked by someone seeing the world with fresh eyes. "Why do the lights dance?" she asked one evening, her small hand nestled in her father's larger one. Aelred considered her question seriously, as he considered all questions about the lights. "Perhaps," he said finally, "because dance is the language of joy, and the lights are the marsh's way of celebrating all, the life it holds, all the beauty it creates, all the wonder it shares with those who know how to watch. Like we're dancing when we're happy," Edith said with the perfect logic of childhood. "Exactly like that." Her father smiled. "The lights are happy, and they dance to show us how they feel." As Edith grew older, she began to accompany her parents on their evening expeditions to guide visitors to the marshland. At first, she simply observed, learning by watching how her father shared the story, how he helped people overcome their fears, how he opened their eyes to beauty. By her 10th birthday, she was beginning to tell parts of the tale herself, her young voice adding a new dimension to the familiar narrative. When she spoke of her great-grandmother's tapestry, of the stories that had been passed down through generations, listeners heard not just history, but living tradition, knowledge that continued to grow and deepen with each telling. "Long ago," she would begin, her voice soft and clear in the marsh-side darkness, "when my great-grandmother was young, people feared the lights that danced over these waters. They thought them evil spirits, dangerous will-o'-the-wisps that would lead travelers astray." Her father would nod encouragingly, proud of how naturally she had inherited the role of storyteller. how instinctively she understood the rhythm and pacing that made listeners lean closer, eager for each word. But my great-grandmother was wise. Edith continued, and she saw beauty where others saw danger. She knew that something so gentle, so peaceful, could not mean harm. And when my father was young, a kind monk helped him discover the truth, that the lights are part of the marsh's own celebration of life. The listeners would watch the dancing flames with new eyes, seeing not supernatural phenomena, but natural wonder, not something to fear, but something to treasure. Another generation was learning to see the world with wonder rather than fear, to approach mystery with curiosity rather than superstition. Seasons turned into years, years into decades. The shrine beside the marshland became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking peace, seeking wonder, seeking respite from a world that sometimes seemed too harsh, too complicated, too frightening. Here, among the dancing lights, visitors found simplicity, found beauty, found reasons to hope. Aelred, now middle-aged, his hair touched with silver, his face lined with the marks of years spent outdoors, became something of a legend himself. Stories spread of the gentle shepherd who could calm fears, who could open eyes to wonder, who guarded mysteries without destroying their magic. But he never thought of himself as special, never considered his knowledge anything more than what any curious heart might discover. He remained humble, approachable, always ready to share what he had learned with anyone willing to listen. "The lights taught me everything I know," he would say when visitors praised his wisdom. "They taught me patience. They taught me that beauty often hides in unexpected places. They taught me that understanding something doesn't diminish its wonder, it deepens it." Sarah, her own hair now streaked with silver, her face reflecting the serene contentment of a life well lived, continued to support her husband's work, often caring for their guests, providing meals and warm beds for travelers who had come to see the lights. Her kitchen became almost as famous as the lights themselves, a place where strangers became friends over shared meals and stories. Little Edith, no longer little but a young woman of grace and intelligence, began to write down the stories, preserving them not just in memory, but in carefully scripted words. She worked by candlelight. In the evenings, her pen moving steadily across parchment, capturing not just the tale of the lights, but the deeper truths they represented. "Lights," she would whisper, her voice filled with the pure wonder that belongs only to children. "Pretty lights." Aelred would lift her in his strong arms, carrying her to their favorite watching spot, where she would sit quietly in his lap, her eyes wide with amazement as the familiar magic unfolded before them. These moments, father and daughter sharing silence and wonder, became precious beyond measure. Sarah would often join them, bringing a warm cloak and cups of herb tea, creating a family ritual around the nightly display. Little Edith would eventually fall asleep in her mother's arms, lulled by the gentle rhythm of the dancing flames and the soft voices of her parents discussing the day's events. Softly the lights drifted into another generation. Aelred would murmur, brushing a kiss against his daughter's sleeping forehead. Quietly the marshes sang their eternal lullaby. Brother Marcus, now an old man, but still traveling, still teaching, still marveling at the wonders of creation, visited regularly. Becoming like a grandfather to little Edith, he would sit by their fire on winter evenings, telling stories of distant lands, of other mysteries he had encountered, of the way wonder manifested itself in countless forms across God's creation. The lights you guard here, he told Aelred one snowy evening, are but one note in creation's great symphony. In the mountains, I have seen aurora that paint the sky with colors beyond naming. In the desert, flowers that bloom only once in decades, covering the sand with impossible beauty. Each mystery, each wonder, teaches the same lesson, that the world is far more magical than we dare to imagine. Little Edith, now old enough to understand stories, would listen with the same rapt attention her father had shown years before. Her questions were simple but profound, the kind that could only be asked by someone seeing the world with fresh eyes. "Why do the lights dance?" she asked one evening, her small hand nestled in her father's larger one. Aelred considered her question seriously, as he considered all questions about the lights. "Perhaps," he said finally, "because dance is the language of joy, and the lights are the marsh's way of celebrating all, the life it holds, all the beauty it creates, all the wonder it shares with those who know how to watch. Like we're dancing when we're happy," Edith said with the perfect logic of childhood. "Exactly like that." Her father smiled. "The lights are happy, and they dance to show us how they feel." As Edith grew older, she began to accompany her parents on their evening expeditions to guide visitors to the marshland. At first, she simply observed, learning by watching how her father shared the story, how he helped people overcome their fears, how he opened their eyes to beauty. By her 10th birthday, she was beginning to tell parts of the tale herself, her young voice adding a new dimension to the familiar narrative when she spoke of her great-grandmother's tapestry, of the stories that had been passed down through generations. Listeners heard not just history, but living tradition, knowledge that continued to grow and deepen with each telling. "Long ago," she would begin, her voice soft and clear in the marsh-side darkness, "when my great-grandmother was young, people feared the lights that danced over these waters. They thought them evil spirits, dangerous will-o'-the-wisps that would lead travelers astray." Her father would nod encouragingly, proud of how naturally she had inherited the role of storyteller, how instinctively she understood the rhythm and pacing that made listeners lean closer, eager for each word. "But my great-grandmother was wise," Edith continued, "and she saw beauty where others saw danger. She knew that something so gentle, so peaceful, could not mean harm. And when my father was young, a kind monk helped him discover the truth, that the lights are part of the marsh's own celebration of life." The listeners would watch the dancing flames with new eyes, seeing not supernatural phenomena, but natural wonder, Not something to fear, but something to treasure. Another generation was learning to see the world with wonder rather than fear, to approach mystery with curiosity rather than superstition. Seasons turned into years, years into decades. The shrine beside the marshland became a place of pilgrimage for those seeking peace, seeking wonder, seeking respite from a world that sometimes seemed too harsh, too complicated, too frightening. Here, among the dancing lights, visitors found simplicity, found beauty, found reasons to hope. Aelred, now middle-aged, his hair touched with silver, his face lined with the marks of years spent outdoors, became something of a legend himself. Stories spread of the gentle shepherd who could calm fears, who could open eyes to wonder, who guarded mysteries without destroying their magic. But he never thought himself as special, never considered his knowledge anything more than what any curious heart might discover. He remained humble, approachable, always ready to share what he had learned with anyone willing to listen. "The lights taught me everything I know," he would say when visitors praised his wisdom. "They taught me patience. They taught me that beauty often hides in unexpected places. They taught me that understanding something doesn't diminish its wonder, it deepens it." Sarah, her own hair now streaked with silver, her face reflecting the serene contentment of a life well lived, continued to support her husband's work, often caring for their guests, providing meals and warm beds for travelers who would come to see the lights. Her kitchen became almost as famous as the lights themselves, a place where strangers became friends over shared meals and stories. Little Edith, no longer little but a young woman of grace and intelligence, began to write down the stories, preserving them not just in memory, but in carefully scripted words. She worked by candlelight. In the evenings, her pen moving steadily across parchment, capturing not just the tale of the lights, but the deeper truths they represented. "Someone should record this," she told her parents. "Someday, people might forget, might lose the understanding you've worked so hard to share. These stories, this wisdom, should be preserved for future generations." Her chronicle grew thick with accumulated wisdom, filled with detailed observations of the lights, behavior, careful records of weather conditions and seasonal variations, but most importantly, filled with stories of transformed hearts, of fears conquered, of wonder discovered. Brother Marcus, now very old but still sharp in mind and spirit, visited one final time, his steps slow but determined, his eyes bright with the accumulated wonder of a lifetime spent in contemplation. He spent long hours reading Edith's manuscript, nodding with approval at the careful attention to both scientific observation and spiritual significance. "This is important work," he told her, his voice soft but fervent. "Knowledge preserved with love. Truth recorded with reverence. This will carry the light forward long after all of us are gone. That autumn, as the leaves turned gold and the marsh prepared for winter's rest, Brother Marcus passed peacefully in his sleep, his final words a prayer of thanksgiving for all the wonders he had been, privileged to witness. He was buried in the village churchyard, his grave marked with a simple stone, carved with the words, "He sought truth and found beauty." Spring came to the marshland as it always had, bringing renewal, awakening, the ancient promise that beauty would return after winter's rest. The lights danced as they always had, rising from dark water, pulsing with gentle rhythm, creating wonder for eyes that knew how to see. In the village, life continued, shaped by the lessons Aelred had shared, guided by the understanding he had nurtured, blessed by the transformation from fear to wonder that had become their gift to the world. Children still gathered to hear the story. Visitors still came seeking peace. The lights still danced, their eternal ballet. Sarah, now the keeper of memories, would sit by her spinning wheel, creating thread that captured starlight while she told the tale to anyone who would listen. Her voice carried the music of long love, the wisdom of shared years, the certainty that some stories transcend their tellers. Edith, now the village's guide to wonder, led expeditions to the marshland, sharing her father's knowledge, his patience, his gift for opening hearts to mystery. Her chronicle, now many volumes, thick, preserved not just the story of the lights, but the deeper truth they represented, that understanding and wonder could coexist, that knowledge need not diminish magic. Little Marcus, no longer little, but a young man with his great-grandfather's curiosity, had begun his own studies, his own observations, his own contributions to the accumulated wisdom. The tradition continued, unbroken as a chain of seasons, steady as the rhythm of the lights themselves. On certain evenings, when the mist rose from the water, when the moon was bright, when the conditions were perfect for wonder, visitors to the marshland would swear they saw an additional figure among the watchers, a gentle presence that observed the dancing lights with the devoted attention of one who had spent a lifetime in their contemplation. But whether this was memory, or hope, or something more, mattered less than the truth it represented. That love for beauty transcends individual lives. That dedication to wonder outlasts those who dedicate themselves. That some stories become part of the landscape they describe. The lights continue to dance, as they had for countless years, as they would for countless more. They rose from the dark water with unchanged grace, pulsed with the same gentle rhythm, created patterns that spoke of eternal mysteries, of cycles within cycles, of beauty that transcended time. And in the village, in the cottage where it all began, Sarah would sit by her fire on quiet evenings, her hands moving thread through patterns of light and shadow, while she whispered the words that had become a prayer, a blessing, a bridge between the seen and unseen. Softly the lights drifted into another evening. Quietly the marshes sang their ancient song, and wonder, like love, like hope, like all the best things in this world, continued to dance. The story had no ending because the best stories never do. They continue in the lives they touch, the hearts they change, the eyes they open to beauty, The mystery of the light hunt had been solved, but the wonder it inspired would dance forever, like the lights themselves, eternal, gentle, beautiful, beyond words, and somewhere in the space between sleeping and waking, between one breath and the next, between the last light of evening and the first star of night, the dancing continued, softly, quietly, endlessly, calling all who would listen to come and see, to come and wonder, to come and be, transformed by the gentle magic that waits for patient hearts. Sleep now, dear listener, and dream of dancing lights, of marshland songs, of all the quiet wonders that await discovery. Rest in the knowledge that beauty endures, that wonder waits, that somewhere, always, the lights are dancing, softly, quietly, eternally, calling you home.